doesn't have a number on it.
Page 4 of
November 2019.
Is that one there?
Yeah.
Yes. Now that would have extensive work done on it through the private plan change hearing.
yes.
So I've reduced the size of that, just so that 33 lot exists within the fund south.
Area. So that's
Yes.
really what this is reflected of.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, it is.
Right.
So it doesn't, we haven't gone into any further work on the balance of the Ultra, what I would call Ultra bus south.
Yeah.
Correct. Not on the, we've just gone, we haven't wanted to go across into the triangle because it means another bridge, which is another 800,000 to enter into that area.
So we're certainly aware of the previous plan change. We have a different decision to make. So we, in terms of any proposition like this, we would expect to hear expert evidence that we could consider and make some decisions on. So just for example, we have a different national policy statement regime than when you previously did that plan change. So I'm just I suppose, bringing to attention that without expert evidence in front of us, we can only take your advice as a lay submitter on the basis of your own experience. So you understand that. Yes. And I notice Mr. Conger's in the room. He's not presenting evidence to us either, is he?
No, no.
Okay. So that's the position there. The second thing I wanted to raise as a preliminary matter was we heard yesterday by from the Thurmans, and Mr. Kiss, who's a surveyor, acted for them. Were you listening to that?
No, I didn't. I was away, so I didn't get the opportunity to listen to that.
So we have evidence on the record that the Thurmans don't support the road through their property and what indicative road are lifted from the plan.
Okay.
So, and was it Mrs. The lady online wasn't Mrs. Thurman, it was
Judy Williams.
Judy Williams.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
She gave us her opinion, and also Mr. Kiss gave us some expert evidence on it. So those are the first two preliminary matters. I'm going to now ask whether the commissioners have some questions.
Yeah.
So over to you, Kit.
Thanks for these. I just want to sort of get my head around this. We've talked a lot about this site with you not being in the room, I have to say, over the past month or so, because the Kaitaki local board have got a real view about where they see the future urban zones. So yeah, it's good to finally talk to you about it. So I guess I just wanted to start. The plan that was attached to your submission. Now, reading your submission, the timing, as I understand the timing, you sought the private plan change to the operative district plan. That was being processed, then the notification for the proposed plan came out, and your submission effectively sought to duplicate what you were seeking in the private plan change into the proposed district plan.
Yes, and so the second part of the hearing, day 6.
Yep.
The advice that we got was that we needed to lodge something to reinforce what we were looking for in the reduced scale from 399 to, and it was in that interim period. That was before the December hearing, and it was something that we were hoping that we didn't need to be worried about.
Yeah.
Okay. So here we are today.
Yeah. Well, you would have had to worry about it at some point, because if you'd been successful in the private plan change, you would have had to get the proposed plan brought into line. But that's a different issue. So So that plan there, the one that's once in your submission, actually, I'll show you, because all you've done really is show us where the future urban zone is on that. Haven't you?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that plan there was for how many lots, do you think? it was?
141.
141. Okay. And 141. So did I hear you say this wasn't the scheme that you started the private plan change with? This was a slightly scaled back one that arose during the course of the hearings?
Correct.
Okay. So you said the first one was up to what, about 399 lots?
Yes.
Okay. So did that have this as being higher density, or did the yellow go further afield?
No, it would have gone across more. That would have filled in that little triangle. If you put
Okay.
your pen back towards you.
Yep.
That area would have filled in some of that.
All right. Okay. So this was a scaling back
Yes.
in response to what was
Yes,
going on
the
here.
opposition that was coming through,
Okay.
and obviously from the council's reporter.
Okay. So, given that this was prepared, it was a part of the private plan change. So your submission, as it stands at the moment, seeks open space zone. So when you say open space zone, are you referring to the open space zone that?
Balance of the farm.
Yeah, okay, but when you say that, because there's a thing in the proposed district plan called the open space zone, and it has a variety of propositions
Right.
that apply to it in terms of land use and what you can do and can't do. It's a zone that's designed for community and recreation purposes. I'm guessing that that's not what you were referring
Correct.
to.
No,
Okay.
no, we're looking to the balance to remain as organic farming.
Okay, like an open space covenant. So effectively, was it a part of the plan change that effectively this would get locked up with no more development?
That's where it sort of got into a bit of a grey area. Yeah, just the consent notice went on. I suppose if we're going to get into that.
Yeah, I think we need to understand it, because
Yeah,
you have changed your proposition quite substantially, and I think I just want to get a sense of.
Yeah, I suppose where we're coming from is that we were trying to find favour with the councillors reporting, also trying to get the community on side, and we were just moving everything around to suit, along with view shafts from the main highway, working with Ngāti Tauri. So it was a complex, there was a range of things going on.
Okay.
But so the map that you've got there, that shows a scaled down version from the private plan change.
Yep.
And we wanted to have that going forward for the new district plan, to have something in place. If we didn't have anything in place, we would be looking at the triangle still.
Yeah, I get you. Okay.
Just before we go ahead,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
on that, and just a point of clarification, Mr. Wesney has interpreted your submission as seeking a mixture of residential and open space zoning, as opposed to residential and open space covenant
Concept, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So that's something that useful to clarify, because I know, I've done a number of private plan change and resource consent projects of this scale in other parts of the country.
Okay.
And generally the concept is to preserve the balance of the land, to preserve that sort of rural
Yes.
and undeveloped sort of state. And the way to do that is usually by way of a consent notice or some sort of open space covenant. Now, you mentioned a consent notice just then.
Yes. Yep.
So presumably that applies to the title as a consequence of a prior subdivision.
Correct.
Okay. And what does that say or not say?
Can I go back to what the council's reporting officer said at the time?
About what?
From the paddocks to talk about lot 29?
Oh, yeah, well, okay,
Relating-
if that's how you need to explain it. So I guess
Yes, yes,
the first bit is that it came as a consequence of the paddock subdivision.
correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if I can.
Yeah, just
Figure it out.
explain that, yeah. And so you might need to tell me what lot 29 is as well.
Lot type 29 is the balance of the dairy farm,
Oh,
which
okay,
is the green area that's shown up there.
gotcha.
The whole lot.
The whole, so that was the balance lot following the paddocks.
No, sorry, that's, yeah, you need to take out the yellow, so the balance lot included all of the yellow as well.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Lot 29, yes.
Consent notice. on
So the
lot-
paddocks is just sitting off to the right
Yeah,
hand
yeah,
side.
yeah, that's right. We went and had a drive around there, actually. It's quite lovely. Yeah,
Thank you.
lot 29.
So from the paddocks hearing, there was points of clarification by the council reporting officer. It was Laura Burton, now look Laura Buttermore. And I'll just go on how she. No further subdivision of lot 29. A number of submissions have outlined concerns that the proposed covenant for lot 29 will not restrict subdivision of this lot as a section of the site is proposed for future residential, and that's the triangle. As outlined in the Awalkra structure plan and the PC 15, the applicant has indicated that they are now willing to impose a covenant that no further subdivision occurs on the balance allotment in perpetuity. This may satisfy some submitters' concerns, and I acknowledge this. However, from the council's perspective, this would not be the best outcome. This future residential area was a result of extensive consultation with the community and was considered an appropriate location for the growth of Awalkra. This area.
Can I interrupt you? She's referring to the fuzz land at that point, is she?
Correct.
Okay.
The triangle.
Yep.
This area is further recognised in Plan Change 15, which identifies the strategic direction for the future urban development of the New Plymouth district. I consider a covenant in perpetuity would be inconsistent with both the Awalkra structure plan and PC 15, which I presume is the paddocks application. I consider the covenant initially proposed no further subdivision while the land remains rural as appropriate and consistent with the strategic direction of Awalkra.
Okay. So if I interpret that correctly, it's the sort of consent notice I've probably drafted over the years as well. It says that and while the land is rural, you can't subdivide it.
Correct.
But if, for example, we acceded to your request and zoned some of it for something other than rural, then the consent notice would no longer apply to that portion.
Correct.
Got it. All right. That's good to know that.
And just for the record, what was the date of the document you're referring?
I will have to go back and get that.
So that was part of the paddock stuff.
Yes, and it would have been something like 2010, and it will be on the council records as well, and the plan change. Resource, was it a plan change, Colin? Or
Was that long ago, 2010? Was it? Yeah.
It'd be quite useful if you could ask your surveyor or your planner to get us a copy of the consent notice.
Yes.
That's quite an important document there.
Can you make a note of that, please?
Right.
Just one,
Yeah. So if I understand what's happened then is that in the so the submission went in, you put your revised plan in as attached to the submission, plan change got refused. You then come to this hearing and go, well, okay, I'm gonna scale it back again.
Yes.
Okay, so this is where this plan comes in. This is your next.
Yes.
So, but on this plan, a couple of key things, I guess, to note. One, it's wholly now within the future urban zone.
Correct.
Okay, so, and I guess this would be where planning evidence would be quite helpful, because this doesn't really help us understand what would be zoned what, because we're not here approving a resource consent. We are here approving colours in certain locations on a plan
Yes.
that then have provisions that apply elsewhere in the plan to what you can do on them. So I guess it would be quite helpful to understand what the zoning pattern would be here on this proposal, bearing in mind that you've got scope that's within that.
Yes.
So I guess what I'm asking is, if the yellow is residential,
Yes,
okay, and green is, I mean,
it's a revegetation.
I get that, but there's no zone for revegetation. So we'd have to understand what the zone was.
It would be reserves.
Okay, well, no, that's not gonna work either. No,
David's got some data.
Well,
yeah,
okay, isn't the answer in the submission where the submitters saw that the triangle be rezoned from fuzz to general residential and open space zone?
yeah, I suppose.
That's how Mr. Wesney
Yep.
summarised it.
Yep.
So is that red dotted line on that plan, is that the
That's the
Fuzz
zone.
zone.
fuzz zone boundary?
That's-
The difficulty is if we just zoned it general residential,
Yes.
and I mean, for those who are listening, we're just having a hypothetical conversation, don't get nervous. The yield is significantly more than 33.
Yes.
No, it's not.
Okay, why is that?
They're 600 square metre lots.
Yep.
And there's no room for any more.
What about all over here?
We aren't, due to the community's concern about the landscape, we're not going there. And to go across the wetland area will require another bridge, which is, we
Alright.
can't put culverts in. They have bridges now over the wetland areas and another $800,000.
So what is your suggestion then? What's your proposal in terms of the zoning of the balance of this then?
On the fuzz area?
Yeah.
Leave it, and we'll carry on dairying farming with it. And at a later stage, move the remainder of that area further up, so that we don't have to cross any further wetlands. And that's where the extension on the yellow map that we've got comes about. So just realign it so that it doesn't follow the red line, it follows the natural wetland gullies.
That's a whole other plan change process.
That's
to-
why I'm trying to keep it simple.
To move a fuzz around.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Unless, of course, the commissioners are of a mind to.
We're not here to negotiate with Mr. I'm sorry. You got one shot and this is it, you know. We may think about it and ask for some more information, but presently this is what we've got to go on. We've got to come up with a zoning pattern. And at the moment, we've got one submitter saying, keep it rural, the whole thing, forever and a day. In the middle, we've got the council and Ngāti Kahari saying, keep it as future urban for now, so that we can have a much more in-depth conversation in the future with Mike about it.
Yep.
And then you've got you saying, well, I want half, from what I hear you saying, I want half of it to stay future urban, but I want the other half so I can get 33 more sections out of it. Correct. Okay. Now, how familiar are you with the zone provisions in the proposed district plan around subdivision and general residential zone?
I'll probably get out of my depth very quickly.
All right. See, that again, that would have been some evidence that would have been quite helpful to us, because the two work hand in hand. So just colouring it a certain colour without us understanding what that means in terms of the outcomes that the zone provisions provide for is sort of only one half of the equation. But I appreciate what where you're coming from. The only matter that sort of jumped into mind was servicing, and I see you've dealt with that quite a bit, and I think one of your other plans showed all the connections. So you just want to just talk us through where the main. So do you want to just talk us through this plan and just give us a bit of a sense of it?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you're looking, say, for the town water supply to start with?
Yep. Just walk us through how it's going to get serviced.
Okay, so we've already, with the council's input, we've bought a new 200mm water main from the Awakura supply tanks down through the paddock subdivision.
I see. Yeah.
And that's gone down through the walkway, across the crossing, and it exists right on the edge of that future urban development zone red line. So that pipeline sits there,
Ready to
blocked,
go.
ready to
Yeah.
go.
And that's enough, obviously, you're saying to service the
Oh.
33?
Well, it was enough for 399.
Oh, okay, all right. Yes, so the answer is yes. Okay, that's all gravity fed, so that's quite useful. Okay.
Yes. And then there's a red line, which is the sewer connection that comes all the way down through the paddock subdivision. That follows in part, the walkway
Mhm.
that goes down behind the houses. So the sewer line's already in place. And then obviously we've got the substation down on the main highway for power supply, but invariably they make you go the furthest distance and put in transformers from a entirely different direction. Obviously well, not obviously, but the fibre and the gas would come through the Thurman access.
Okay.
Or it could come back up off the main highway as well. The gas is down there, plus the fibre.
Okay, that makes sense. This plan shows a potential vehicle access from State Highway 45.
Yes.
Is that the access that?
Yeah, but we've got a rating report.
Yeah, okay. Okay. But that, under your revised zoning proposal, that would, I mean, that's a completely different proposition to some extent, isn't it?
It is, and
Yeah.
none of the services are there, and you have to start your development from that entrance.
The plan doesn't show an indicative road through the Thurman property at the moment. There was a submission that said it should, and then the Thurmans have said it shouldn't. So
I know the Thurmans personally quite well.
yeah, I got the sense from how they spoke about you.
In a good way, I hope.
It was neutral. You've told us that you've presumably got a conditional contract that enables you to exercise it to acquire the land in the event that you get some way forward.
That's the understanding, that the contract has done its time.
Okay.
And so I believe that I could be of help to Mike and Judy. It's not everybody's cup of tea doing subdivisions, and I could be helpful, and financially the input for them could be beneficial as well.
If there wasn't the indicative, I mean, that could still happen regardless of whether there was an indicative roading proposition shown through their property. Because at that point, presumably you've got an incentive because you don't have access to your rezoned land.
Correct. But that doesn't stop me from going elsewhere though, for another entrance by buying maybe 2 houses or 3 houses if the push comes to shove.
But what you're saying is that there's no appetite to go down onto State Highway 45 and come up from that way, not even for a 33 lot development?
No. I think the entrance, we've done a lot of homework on with Andy Skerrick, was the other professional that we had, and he's analysed all of that road section, and where it is the best for site visibility and passing lanes.
This one over here.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
But if that was the access to get over to this portion, are you saying there'd have to be another wetland crossing?
Yes.
Okay.
Unless it came right up around the top of the green part. If you look towards the middle of the
here.
farm. No, just where your finger is, go back down a bit. Yeah, there's a green, over.
Oh.
Yep, there's a green part right in the middle of the farm.
Oh, yeah.
You have to come around the top of that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. Long way to go, isn't it?
Well, I'm sort of mindful of, not only do I enjoy that view, which we were actually silly enough to put in place, because we took all away the vegetation, the old macrocarpa trees, boxthorn. We made that view. If you look on the other side of the road, there's a row of trees, and that view is just as outstanding to the sea. So we actually, because we take pride in our properties, and mow the road frontages and everything else, we open it all up, and probably to our detriment. Nobody would have known what was behind the hedge.
Has Mr. Bain given you any advice on the quite lengthy cul-de-sac with a swimming pool at the end of it? I only say that because cul-de-sacs are great, but they've really fallen out of vogue when it comes to urban design, simply because they're a one-way exit with 33 lots. They're not sort of top of the pops at the moment. Has Mr. Bain talked to you about that at all?
Yes, there's just no way around it, basically, other than to encourage other modes of transport. We can come down past the land set aside for the swimming pool. You can get onto e-bikes or on the walkway, and scooters, etc., that use a different transport method. But unfortunately, no, unless we can have that road coming from Thurman's down straight onto the main highway, we can't get away. Can't get rid
Is
of
that simply because you're sort of squeezed between the two?
the wetlands? Yes.
What's the width there that you're talking about?
Between the wetland areas?
Well, yeah, I mean, you've got what, 20-metre road reserve, plus how long, deep are the sections?
Don't know offhand
30
what the
metres?
sections would be, but you've certainly got a good 20-metre reserves on each side of
Yeah.
the wetland areas. So we're looking at say 20. You could say that maybe another 30, say 60. Yeah. It's actually quite a big area. I might have noticed on the video, it's quite a big area.
All right. Yep, I think,
If you don't mind me asking, what
Yeah.
what else were you looking for as far as, the sections are all the minimum 600 square metre size? One of the things were the commissioners really looking for?
But this is the first time I've seen the plan.
well, this is the first time we've seen the plan.
Right.
And I think I sort of echo the chair's comment that, you've been living with this for a long time,
Correct.
and you've probably got a pile of reports and
There's one here.
and all of that sort of stuff.
Yep.
We're not the same people who considered and talked about the private plan change. This is an entirely new process.
Yep.
And in the normal course, I think we would have expected at least some planning, some ecology, some archaeology, some transport, some urban design evidence. I mean, we've all been sort of working in this space for probably combined, I hate to say what the number works out as, but that is sort of, I hate to say that's the convention, because I don't like conventions personally, but there's a certain amount that we have to be satisfied of. I mean, at the moment, you've got a couple of things going in your favour. One, it's zoned for future urban. Two, it's already been considered, so there's been a lot of work done. Three, we've got a good handle on the land capacity and demand and supply issues for the region, and what everyone's trying to match up.
Yep.
And trying to achieve. So there's a lot of good things going in favour of this, but yeah, I don't know whether you've prepared us enough. I'd have to have a chat with the other commissioners about it. Maybe that there's a way for us to use the process we're in to try and just get a few more answers around some of that technical stuff. And I mean, it's not a criticism. It's just that you might have.
Certainly, what I've got is a lot of detailed section mapping of, say, for example, this 33 lot one that shows 60 sections in full detail. But the new rules that have just come in say you can't do that anymore. And so this is the latest information that's available to show that the yield can no longer be what we had thought a year ago, is no longer acceptable.
Okay.
So that's what you're referring to there in terms of the new rules, what you, in the plan you're talking about,
Yes, the iwi management plan.
the EV management plan.
And so, and also the Taranaki Regional Council with their setbacks of waterways and the treatment of streams going away from culverts to bridges. So we've pulled all this together.
Okay.
This is the latest stuff, and I just wanted to go back and say that Alan Doyle, the surveyor, said, this is today and now, and this is from the work that he's done out at Area Q, where there's some issues.
Yeah.
And that all of his knowledge has come together to present, this is what you can't expect any more or any less. You won't get any more sections.
Yeah.
This is as far as you can go.
I mean, and that's, I mean, that is really helpful, that you've got that experience coming in. It would have been, you know,
Problem is it's still hearsay.
yeah.
Okay.
We really do rely on expert
Yes.
opinion.
Yeah. Well, I guess
And
without
we can understand why you haven't invested more money in that, because you've done it all before, but that's
the way it is.
the way it is.
Okay, accept that.
Look, I know David will probably have some questions too.
Yeah, no, I'm,
Yes.
yep,
Not a lot more,
yeah,
Kai. Here's the issue for me is that you're largely running a resource consent type argument at a plan change hearing or a zoning hearing. And this is what the development might look like. But before it can look like that, you've got to get over the hurdle of changing the zoning
Yes.
from future urban to what people refer to as an upzoning to general residential. And so that's where some of the big picture questions about the suitability of the site, are there any fundamental impediments, flooding, natural features, servicing, which you seem to have covered, transportation, those sort of matters. I've just recently been involved in a similar rezoning in Palmerston North for an area called Whiskey Creek. And that's the first thing we look at. Is there any fundamental impediment for changing it from in that case, a rural zoning to a residential, in this case, from a future urban to a residential. And so, and there's an important planning argument that goes with that in terms of matching supply and demand and what the objectives of the district plan are in terms of yield and location, housing choice, that sort of need to be answered. You sort of jumped the gun a little bit and gone to the detail. Just an observation, not a criticism. Just in terms of factual matters, though, can I just clarify what this plan is showing us? The red line, is that the sewer line, did you say?
Where the red, the diagonal one straight across?
No, this red.
Yes, the other one that follows down the walkway and across the other side. Yes, that's
Yes.
the sewer line.
Okay, and we've got a blue line, which is the extension for water supply coming up from the south, is that correct?
You've got that one there?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the new 200 mil water main straight from the tanks.
Okay.
So that went down through the paddock subdivision and covered off fire hydrants, et cetera, et cetera. So we tapped it.
And the yellow dotted line, is that just showing distances, walkability, is it, or what's that showing? These yellow.
Yes, yeah, the 625 meters is the distance from the main highway, 375 meters is the closest point. Yes, correct.
Now, your entire submission was in a couple of parts. First of all, it asked for what you call the triangle.
Yes.
The fuzz to be rezoned general residential. You're now telling us that you want to pull back from that, and you'd have part of that zone general residential, that, for want of a better term, the eastern part, and the western part to remain future urban. Is that?
No, the designation, as in the balance of that triangle.
Yes.
No, back to just farmland, rural farmland. Yes, correct.
That's not what Mr. Wesley's assessed. I don't think it is. Don't want to He's taken your submission at face value
Yes.
and
That I want my cake and eat it.
no, that you're wanting a mixture of residential and open space zoning. Yeah.
Right, no, so that, the balance, going across that wetland area,
Yes.
that would be, that would continue to be part of the organic dairy farm.
What about the area to the south of the fuzz boundary? What's your submission seeking for the remainder of the land?
That if that, area, that's, the balance of the, fuzz area,
Yes. Well, no, it's at the moment, it's zoned rural production, isn't it? I was assuming that you were asking for it to be zoned FUZ.
as in the, coming up.
Yeah, the entire balance of the site outside of the land.
Just the amount of area that was, set aside.
Look, okay, let me just explain on the area to the south of the grey line, of the grey area.
Yeah,
Is that bit here where the Christine's cursor is there?
yes,
What were you seeking in terms of a zoning outcome for that area of land?
to just leave it as, rural.
Okay. Yeah. Was that your understanding? Yep. Okay. And where would you have us put the zone boundary between the residential zone and the balanced rural land within the triangle?
Just to bring it up, obviously with negotiating with Atari, but bring it up alongside,
On the outside of your planting corridor.
go further up, Commissioner, on where the green lots, the 10 hectare there. So, if you take the 33 lots.
Yeah.
And then just bring your pen towards the 10 hectare reserve, that area, just if you come down, just bring it up along that.
Why don't you go up there? and
Yeah.
look at it? Or even if.
I'm being along the left hand side of the.
Yeah, can you put the other map up, please?
I'll just have to share it so that those who are watching us from BG can.
So we've got,
No, back to that plan.
Oh,
Have you got
sorry, that one.
Yeah,
if this one.
yeah, good.
So what I would like.
Yep.
Is that area there.
Yep.
To get a similar size, placed in here somewhere,
Okay.
so that we,
I don't think we've got scope to do that in terms of future urban. Is that what you're asking? No, we can't do that. I don't think. No. Yeah, it wasn't shown on your submission plan. Your submission plan proposed for the whole property, either rural or residential.
oh, this is great.
Well, no, open space, sorry, it was called. That's.
So the yellow one would show, the area coming through there.
Yeah.
So you're saying you come back from residential to future urban in that
Oh, okay.
area. So that's a lesser relief.
Potentially.
potentially.
It's, yeah, that's complicated. But yeah, okay, I can see that.
So what we're trying to do is for the community and everybody in our opera, they love that view shaft
Okay.
through there.
Mr.
Yep.
McKee, I think we've got that now. Mr. Mackay, sorry. I work with Mr. Mackay, but it's spelled differently, so I'm supposed to get that all the time. Yeah. Just take a seat again, because I think you can see whether David's finished his questions.
I just check with Mr. Wesney, that the matter that Mr. Mackay just described in terms of south of the FUZ line, is that within scope?
I think so, and
Yeah,
the
I
reason I
thought
say that is that the concept plan and submission,
Yeah,
the red dash line, which is labelled zone boundary,
yeah.
I think anything that's within that red dash line is within scope.
Can you just
Rezone.
put that back up, Christina? So saying we could, oh, thanks. No, that one there. So saying you, I'm just thinking out loud here in terms of a zoning proposition. So you bring the general residential zone up here and go across there. And then you would effectively bring your fuzz zone along that side and bring it across here somewhere.
Correct.
Okay. So then the gully's here and that becomes future urban in there.
Yep.
And then
So-
all of this stays rural.
Correct.
So David, did you have any more?
No, I had assumed that was what was being requested. I just need to confirm that.
I think we're learning as we go, and all of us, in terms of just the big picture.
Yep.
So it's certainly worth having a talk about this together.
Thank you.
So one more question.
Sure.
Sorry. Mike, what would you do down here with the swimming pool area?
That would be, because it's within 80 metres of the road, we've pulled back, so we haven't worried about that. As in trying to build on it. And we didn't want to raise any attention from Otahe. We just wanted to try and get a plan through that was going to be acceptable to everybody. So what we're doing is making land available for a community swimming pool. And if the community weren't in favour, we could do something ourselves. And it would allow a playground area, open space in front of that swimming pool to the main road.
Sorry, I have another.
Yeah, I suppose if that was all zone general res to start with, then the 80-metre setback means houses are a no-go. So then, yeah, you could either gift the land to the community or the council, and they could seek a resource consent to put a sport complex or something on it. But yeah, okay, no, I can.
You wouldn't want to pocket it.
No, or mixed use or anything there.
No.
You'd want to just make the whole thing. Yeah,
Sorry, Mr. McKee, I have one final question. On this plan, are you saying that then that doesn't show the access through the Durban property?
Yes, it does.
It does, so that it's through there.
Yes,
Yeah,
it
that's
shows
good.
the sections.
Yeah, and is that, you can't probably see that, is that the indicative road that's shown on that?
Correct. Yes, it is.
And so, you know, it's always dangerous to assume that we know things.
And I completely understand now.
Yeah.
That's why
Yes,
put the maps
you know
together.
it.
Yeah,
This area here,
yes,
who owns that?
lumens.
Okay. And it's in the,
That's already zoned.
it's already zoned residential.
already
isn't it?
zoned residential.
Yeah.
But I'll just say one thing on that. That for all it's worth, the Thurmans would get a better yield if we had the through road
Yes.
as opposed to a turn head
Yeah.
or a rubbish truck, et cetera, et cetera. Just something another.
And just to complete the questioning, for the general residential that you're seeking within the triangle, it's probably a combination of the white line, the orange dotted line.
Yep.
And then a line running somewhere up the green area, presumably, sort of a wedge. Yeah. And then what happens below that is.
Correct.
That's it. Thank you, I understand now.
You are correct. I've been living this for 10 years, so.
Yeah.
My apologies.
I have a few questions.
Um,
No, I have a few questions. So I
oh,
think-
sorry.
I'm just making sure we've got no others from, before I start. Yes. So, Mr. Mackay, I want to ask you about the bridge
Yes,
across that wetland area. So has your team assessed these wet gully areas in terms of the new MPSFM and the wetland classifications?
yes,
Which are very strict.
there's been some work done on, that's why we've gone away from culverts
Yes,
and detention dams.
yes,
And our information coming from our surveyor is that it will be a bridge and with a concrete pad on each side and this.
A single span.
Correct. Yes.
When I asked that question to Mr. Kiss yesterday, he suggested that it could be culverted, but
No.
technically it could, but not regulation wise.
The reason that it could be culverted, the culvert has to be so big, it becomes uneconomic. You better go for a
It would
bridge.
have more effects on earthworks and
Correct.
everything else.
Yes.
Big box culverts as opposed to a couple of piers on the side and span.
That's it.
Okay, so single span, not a, no
Nope.
pile in the middle of the stream? Okay, that's best practice, and as long as the span's short enough to enable that.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
All right. My next questions are about the walking provisions. You mentioned the walkway running along the line of the red
Yes.
line on this plan. Is that something that's always been there? Or have you put it
I
on?
put it on, and that was
Okay.
part of the paddocks.
Paddock subdivision?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And the yellow, is there a walk, see where the yellow line goes to the school?
Yes,
Is that an existing walkway or
Yes.
a road
Yes, it
through the
is.
school there?
yes, it is.
And this isn't a question, but now I've established those facts, certainly could urban planning around village areas like this to be within 500 metres walking to key facilities, shops and those sort of things. So that would seem to tick the box from the urban design, new modern planning perspective as well. So I do have some thoughts about perhaps next steps, but do we need to have a chat
Yeah, I think we probably need to have a chat.
first? So look, I think if we can adjourn for 5 minutes, and if we can go and have a talk about where we're up to with this new information.
Yeah, I apologise, I have sprung it on you, but
Yes,
but I've read Hamish's report and we've reacted to it.
yes.
Understood. Yeah.
That we haven't, it's no use going with it, just hitting our heads against the wall, we have to react and
Yeah.
do something different.
But certainly for me, it's great that Tane and others
Yeah.
are here to listen as
Didn't
well.
recognise.
because This is probably new to you as well. It's like, you or not? Reasonably. Okay, we'll be back in 5 minutes. Thank you, just for that. That's quite a common technique us commissioners do. We take some time, give ourselves some time out to think about
We
things.
do paper, scissors, rock. No, no, we don't.
Yes, look, I think, but what we've decided is that based on this new information, that we would like you to prepare us a proposed zoning plan that would tie in with the zones within the district plan, match,
Yes,
give a very specific request for what you're seeking. And the other thing we require is a pretty detailed section 32 AA assessment. Your planner, Mr. Condor, will know about that. That really looks at if we are going to change the plan from what's notified, we need to go through a series, understand and be satisfied a series of tests that will detail the costs and benefits, the efficiencies, those sorts of matters. Section 32 AA of the Act sets out the range of matters. It will also look at whether overall the new zoning pattern is appropriate or more appropriate than what's been proposed. And the other thing, just thinking about those gully areas, are you thinking at all about QE2 covenants on those areas or not?
some form of, protection, absolutely.
So,
The QE2 works well with the other
yes,
10 hectare.
yes.
zone.
I know that these sort of linking corridors, if you know, you may have, but again, any proposal that you might have, there are SNA layers, significant natural area layers in the plan. So just give it your best shot in terms of that zoning plan, thinking about the protection of the gully systems. Yes. And also the important section 32AA, which will bring to us planning evidence and assessment. Certainly, you know, we're not comfortable or satisfied that we can make this sort of decision on the information we have in front of us. And we have heard some concerns from the community board and obviously from Atari as well.
Yeah.
And the Thurman. So there's a number of players. We are doing some site visits on the 25th and the 26th of July.
Is there anything I can do to help?
Yes, look, I think the thing you could do to help would be to provide that information to us before then.
Okay.
Yep. And I'm looking at times, we're mid to late June now. Does anyone have a calendar in front of them in terms of what would be reasonable?
Remind me of those dates for the site visit.
25, 26th of July.
There's sometime the week prior.
Yeah, that's right, 5 weeks from today.
Yes,
18th, Monday the 18th.
yes. So Monday, the 18th of July, have that information to Christine. Hamish, I'm thinking from a staff point of view, what would you like to do? Would you like to, you obviously receive that as well, and obviously hold your right of reply until you see that extra information.
Yes.
Is that clear enough?
Yes, it is.
And obviously, in the meantime, if there's any discussions you wanted to have and present information as part of your 32A in terms of the neighbours and Matari, that's up to you. It's not new because they're submitters, so just gives you an opportunity to think about the sort of detail we need to even make a decision.
That's fine. Yeah.
Anything to add, commissioners?
No, I just think this is an opportunity. I mean, as Stephen said, we don't have enough at the moment. The Section 32A analysis ought to bring everything together. Gives you an opportunity to think about some of the criticisms in the officer's report and blend it into that analysis, and puts it in the language of the district plan that we are very used to and familiar with now. And you can take a real steer from how the district plan uses zoning in conjunction with indicative roads and zoning provisions to get a best sense of what's going to be the language for this to demonstrate on a map for us. Yeah.
Yes, Hamish.
Just looking at the calendar again and just aligning with other timelines. The 42A report for the sweep up hearing due on Friday the 22nd of July.
Yes.
If Mackay could submit it by the 15th of July, that would give myself 5 clear days to review it and do the right of reply on the same day that the sweep up hearing.
Okay.
Reports due out.
And then we can talk
That
to you
would be
about
all,
it.
you'd have all the information.
That's a deal.
Everything.
I still think that's a generous amount of time.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Okay.
Given that you've got the team and. Right, yes, David.
I endorse exactly what the chairman and Commissioner Littlejohn said, that the Section 32 does have to be fulsome. It needs to be very fulsome.
Yeah.
Needs to align. I mean, what you're asking, what the test that we have to be satisfied is that this proposed zoning is appropriate to give effect to the policies of the district plan and the objectives of the plan. So at the most, it has to be the most appropriate.
Okay.
Not the superior, but most appropriate.
Yes.
Okay. And so that's very important that that's conducted by a planner. Second thing is, because the zone boundaries that you're seeking won't follow cadastral boundaries. You're going to give some very careful thought to the position of them. Both within the triangle and to the south of the triangle, so long as that is within the scope of your original submission. So you can't go beyond the zoning, the plan that you submitted. Okay? Because you don't have legal scope to go beyond that.
Very much.
But, yeah, natural features or whatever natural features, might be able to be used instead of cadastral boundaries will be important. And understanding why you've selected those boundaries will be important.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
That'd be very helpful.
The 15th. And we'll wait to hear that. Just give signal to Julie.
Yep.
And we'll look forward to seeing that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We do, we've already had one karakia today, but we do feel like we need another one just to finish this.
Thanks, Tom.
Tira kia tata katoi na kia na kia. Ka koutou tuku mai tēnei hui utua. Nō reira, tō tātou karakia wakamutunga o tū tēnei rangi. Kia tau, kia tātou katoa, kia te wai o tō tātou āre, kia iwhara i te pete arawa o te atua. E te whiwhinga tahitanga ki te wairua tapu. Ake, āmi. Kia mai tātou.
Thank you. Right, we'll adjourn until 10:30 tomorrow morning. Commissioner Little John and I will be doing this site visit in the morning. Staff writer replies.
10:30?
10:30.